Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to a new playthrough on the channel. We had another dismal showing in Tiny Epic Galaxies last week, so Space Month is going to continue as we take on our lone deck builder for the month via Star Realms from Wise Wizard Games. In this game, our goal is to defeat whatever challenge we're up against by buying ships, bases, and potentially heroes to build up our deck before we get defeated ourselves. If you've seen my background campaign for Hero Realms, this is the exact same game, just with a sci-fi coat of paint. First up, let's go through today's challenge. We're taking on Blob Assault today. So starting authority for this is 40 times the number of players. Since we've only got one, it's playing with 40 health. On its turn, the boss plays the top card of the Blob deck. When playing with more than one player, which we aren't, so we won't bother with that part. Taking a look here, the boss never scraps its cards. If the boss would scrap a card in the trade row, it always scraps the most expensive card. In the case of a tie, it scraps the card closest to the trade row. The boss has no hand. If it would draw a card, instead it puts the lowest cost base it has in its discard pile into play. If there isn't a base there, it gains 7 combat instead. If a player would make the boss discard a card, the player gains 3 combat instead. If the boss would gain trade, it gains that much combat instead. If the boss has no deck left at the end of its turn, the players win the game in a minor victory. If the boss's authority is reduced to 0, the players win the game in a major victory. So that's what we're up against. Now let's move over to the board and we'll start setting up our starting market. The boss is starting off with a spike cluster in the discard pile, which is a 2-cost base. Gives it 2 health, gives it 2 combat and an ally ability of 1 trade, which is also known as combat in this case, non-outpost strength of 3. So basically what that means is that this base can be targeted, or this base doesn't have to be destroyed, but it can be. Whereas if I were to say outpost, and I'll point that out when it comes up during the game, they would have to destroy that first, or we would, depending on what side is the outpost. So always available for purchase are the explorers. For 2 trade, you get 2 trade out of those, and you can scrap them for 2 combat. So we've got our starting market to look at. First up, we have an Enforcer mech for 5 trade. It's a machine cult ship. 5 combat, you may scrap a card in your hand or discard pile, and an ally ability with another machine cult card, destroy target base. You can scrap it to draw a card. Next up, Long Hauler for 4 trade. You get 3 when you play it. Ally ability with the Trade Federation for 2 more trade. Then scrap it to put the next base you acquire this turn on top of your deck. Next up, Neural Nexus for 7 trade, which is a machine cult base. Scrap a card in your hand or discard pile and gain combat equal to its cost. Ally ability with machine cult to draw a card. This is what I was talking about earlier. So when the number looks like that and has outpost on it, that means that has to be attacked first. And it's got an outpost strength of 6 on it. And you have to deal that damage all in one shot to take the base out. Next up, a Siege Fortress with Star Empire for 7 trade. Get 5 combat from it when it's in play. Base or ally ability with another Star Empire ship of 4. Outpost strength of 5. And the last card up, Light Cruiser for 3 trade. You get 4 combat. Target opponent discards a card. Ally ability, another 2 combat. Double ally ability, so you'd have to have 2 Star Empire ships or bases in play to draw a card. All right, that should be everything set up. So let's go ahead and we're going to play on beginner difficulty, which means we're going to get 3 turns before the boss gets its first turn. So with that, we're all set up. So let's get into our first turn. We'll tell a little bit of story before we jump in because I forgot there's flavor text here. If it ever wants to focus, that is, we will. Okay. A blob spike cluster was discovered by colonists at the fringe of your star realm. Panicked colonial defenses attacked and destroyed the cluster, but not before it sent a distress signal deep into blob space. The mistake has been made. There is no undoing it now. Your only choice is to prepare your realm for the inevitable blob response, and pray you can survive it. Great. Somebody messed up. So one thing I know about the blob and playing a lot of star realms is they like to hit hard and fast. So ideally, I want to get a couple bases out and maybe stick them for a couple turns so I can try to blunt some of this assault. I start off with 50 authority, by the way. So as we see here, we've got 3 trade. Not much I can do with blunting an assault, but I can get a light cruiser to try to fight back in my own way. So coming out into the market is an outland station for 3 trade with it's a trade federation base. We can gain either one trade or 3 authority and scrap it to draw a card. So all of that will move over. Then I'll draw up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll see we've got some combat coming out, so I'll play that. Hit the boss for 2 to bring it down to 38. Oop, let's do that the other way, Phoenix. That should be my 10s. That should be my 1. So it's at 38. And now for my second turn, I will go ahead and grab that outland station right away. And then replacing it will be a cargo craft for 2 trade. I get 2 trade back, target opponent discards a card, ally ability for 4 combat. Then we'll draw 1, 2, and I'll shuffle all of this up. I want to try to get enough trade to get to that siege fortress if I can, but that might be a big ask. So there's 3, 4, 5. We'll take a look at what's in the hand. And looks like it's another kind of dud turn, so I'll play all of that out. We'll hit the boss for another 1 to bring it down to 37. Then for 4 trade, I think I'm just going to build up my trade right now. I'm going to go ahead and grab this long hauler, especially since I've got 1 more turn before the boss starts fighting back. And then coming out to replace the long hauler will be an integration port for 3 trade. I get 1 back, but an outpost strength of 5. That might be worth grabbing if I have the trade for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is my 4th turn, which means after this, the boss will get its first turn. Okay, we got some good stuff here. So I'll go ahead and play out the outland station with an outpost strength of, with non-outpost strength of 4, I should say, so they can't ignore that. All right, then we've got a total of 5 combat from the light cruiser and the Viper, and target opponent discards a card. Which discarding a card, I believe, gave us 3 combat instead, so that'll bring us up to a total of 8, which we'll hit the boss with to bring it down to 29. And then I've got to decide what I'm going to do with this outland station, if I want the extra trade or the 3 authority. 2 trade, I can take the cargo craft with that, but a 3rd one would give me the integration port, which is an outpost base of 5, and I think I want that, honestly. So I'll go ahead and grab that. Then replacing the integration port will be a builder bot for 1. It's another machine cult ship. 1 trade, you may scrap a card in your discard pile. Ally ability of another trade, and scrap it for 2 combat. So all of this can move over to the discard pile. 1, 2. And I'll go ahead and shuffle all of this up. Three, 4, 5. We'll see what we've got for my next turn coming up. Looks like another fairly slow turn, so hopefully the boss isn't able to do much with this card. So their first card coming out is a Stinger for 3 with 3 combat. There's nothing else for ally abilities. so it never scraps its cards. Because that's a three combat and it can't ignore the Outland Station, it hits me with that for 3 and brings me down to 47 health. 47. Well, health and authority I'm going to use interchangeably. So that moves to the discard pile. Then we'll move into my next turn. This one, I was going to break this up, but I think this will probably just play it fine as a flow. So 2 more combat, which will hit the boss to bring it down to 27. And then I've got 3 trade, which I'll grab the cargo craft for 2 because I know I've got more Star Empire stuff coming. Replacing it will be another Outland Station, which I might grab next turn, assuming it's still available, and then I'll grab the Builder Bot. And replacing that will be a Frontier Runner for 1 trade, 2 combat and 2 authority. We'll go through the flavor text when I actually play it. That will all move to my discard pile. Oop, didn't mean to jar the camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, if we're able to stick... Actually, we might have some options if we're able to stick that... If we're able to keep the Outland Station around. So let's see what our next card coming out is. It's a Spike Cluster. It's another Spike Cluster. 2 trade, or 2 combat, ally ability of 1. So it's not able to take out the Outpost Station. It'll hit me directly to bring me down to 45. That base probably needs to go, and I think I've got enough firepower to take it out. So we'll play out the light cruiser first, which will give me a total of 5 combat, which I'm likely aiming at that Spike Cluster. Then we've got 3 trade, and the long hauler is going to give me a total of 5 because 3 for playing it, and then an extra 2 because I've got the ally ability on that. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. I could go to 9. This is a decision, which I think I'd feel better about taking the trade if I could get all 3 of them, but I can't. I want the Frontier Runner, the Siege Fortress, and the Outland Station, but I don't think I'm going to get to it. Actually, that's... Discard a card is... We established... Oh, that was 3 combat, right. So that's 7, which I'll use the discard a card to take out the Spike Cluster right away, because I don't want that ally ability to linger. Another 4 will bring the boss down to 23. Let's see. Do I want the... So I'd be at 8 trade right now. I'm at 8 trade right now, and I think I will take the 3 authority to go up to 48. I'll buy the Siege Fortress for 7. We replace first, even though I'm pretty sure I'm buying the Frontier Runner here, so we find a farm ship for 4 trade. 3 trade, draw a card, then discard a card. Scrap it for 4, and yes, I am going to buy the Frontier Runner. And then replacing that will be the Destroyer Bot for 3 trade. Get 5 combat, and you may scrap a card in your discard pile. So all of that moves over to the discard pile. 1, 2, 3... 4, 5. We'll see what we've got coming out here. We've got our outpost and another slow turn. So the next turn for the boss, the Burrower, 5 trade or 5 combat, 4 of which will have to go take out the Outland Station, which goes to my discard pile, not the boss's. And then it will hit me for 1 to bring me down to 47. All right, so I'll play out the integration port to give me an extra trade. Then I've got 1 more. Then I've got 1 combat, which will take the boss down to 22. And for 3 trade, I'll just grab another Outland Station. Then replacing that Will be a captured outpost for 3 trade. Draw a card, then discard a card. Technically, I'd have one more trade left, but that's just going to float away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Over to the deck. Let's see what we've got coming out here. Okay, we're getting somewhere here. So let's see what the boss is going to hit us with. The boss is going to hit us with a Crusher for 6 combat, which will be just enough to take out the integration port, then hit me for 1 to bring me down to 46. No ally abilities in effect because the boss doesn't have an ally ability. I'll play out the Siege Fortress to give me 5 combat right off the bat. Then I'll play the Cargo Craft, which will give me 2 trade, target opponent discards a card, and both ally abilities on the Siege Fortress and the Cargo Craft both turn on. So I am going to have a lot of combat. I have 1 more right here from the Viper, and I've got 2 trade for a total of 4, which I will grab the... well, let's figure out combat first. So I'm hitting the boss for 6, 10, 14... That should be 17 damage, I think. Yes, that player gains 3. So 9, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah, so the boss is down to 5 health. And then for 4 trade, I think I'll grab the... captured outpost for 3. If this is a 1, I can snap it up as well. If not, the 1 trade is going to float away. Federation Cruiser for 5 trade. 5 combat and 4 authority. Ally ability with Trade Federation, 2 combat, 2 authority. So that's unfortunate. We may actually have this one locked up already. 2, 3, 4, 5. I was expecting a bit more of a challenge on this one. So yeah, if we're able to keep that Siege Fortress around, I think this game is probably... This game might be just over anyway on our next... Oh yeah, this game is just over on the next turn, whether we keep that or not. So, next up for the boss we find... a Nesting Ground for 4. Gets 2 trade, which actually gives it... If it gains trade... It gains combat instead, so it's going to be... It's going to have a total of 2 combat, which will just bounce off the Siege Fortress because that's an outpost strength of 5. And then that's it for the boss's turn. Alright, so we get 5 automatically. We'll play out the Light Cruiser for 4 and target opponent discards a card. I just want to figure out how much total combat we've got here. And I know we've got a lot. We also have a lot of trade, incidentally enough. So we've got 3 coming out from the Long Hauler, another 2 from the Frontier Runner, and another 2 because the Long Hauler's ally ability turns on. We also gain 2 authority from the Frontier Runner to go up to 48. 48 authority. Then we have a total of... Let's see, 5, 7, 8, 9. 5 of which will go to a Federation Cruiser. I'm buying just because I can, basically. Replacing the Federation Cruiser. There's a Frontier Hawk, 3 combat, draw then discard a card. Flavor text on the Frontier Runner, speaking of which. Frontier settlements rely heavily on runners for exchanging vital supplies. Then for 4, I'll grab the Farm Ship for 4. And we'll flip this over to reveal. An orbital shuttle for 2 trade. Gain 3 trade. If you have 2 or more bases in play, gain 4 authority and draw a card. Alright, so then with my total combat of 9, 13, 14, 15, 18, we'll hit the boss down to negative 13. So that's it for that playthrough of Blob Assault. I was not expecting this to go quite this quickly, but I'm not complaining about it in the slightest. So, that was a very quick playthrough of Star Realms. I think I might go ahead, shuffle up, and go again. So, I'm going to shut the camera off, and we'll come back with the second game ready to go. We're all set up for game 2, so let's see what we're starting the market with. So this time we're starting with a Frontier Hawk for 1, 3 combat, draw then discard a card. Next up, another Frontier Hawk, we just saw this. The Outland Station, which was very useful for us in our last playthrough. A Repair Mech for 4, 3 trade, or put a base from your discard pile on top of your deck. Ally ability with Machine Cult, you may scrap a card in your hand or discard pile. And Cargo Craft for 2. 2 trade, target opponent discards a card. Ally ability with Star Empire gets you 4 trade. And looking at our starting hand, 1, 2, 3. We've got 2 trade and a combat to help to give us a hand. So I think this time, just to give us a little bit more of a challenge, we're going to play on intermediate. So we're going to get 2 turns before the boss takes one. So with that, we'll just go ahead and jump right in. We'll use our 1 combat to hit the boss for 1 to bring him down to 39. Then I think 2 trade will just grab me these 2 Frontier Hawks. Then we'll replace them both with our Federation Battleship for 7. 5 trade, or 5 combat, 5 authority, draw a card. Ally ability with another Trade Federation ship, or Trade Federation card to destroy target base. Scrap it for 10 authority, and destroy your bot for 3. Machine Called Ship, 5 combat, you may scrap a card in your discard pile. Technically, those 2 should have come out 1 at a time, but given that I was buying 2 Frontier Hawks anyway, I just decided to shortcut it right there. 4, 5. I just decided to shortcut it and bring them both out at once. So, looking here, we've got another Viper that'll hit the boss down to 38. Actually, I think we took 1 extra turn. Yeah, we actually took 1 extra turn before the boss took one, so we played on Super Beginner, I guess. We probably wouldn't have struggled too much with that anyway, so the boss will actually be going after this turn. And then for 4 trade, I think 3 will grab the Outpost Station. Then we'll see if this comes up, gives us anything. Long Hauler for 4, which was very helpful for us in our last play. So 1, 2. We'll go ahead and shuffle all of this up. Three, 4, 5. We'll see what we've got coming here. Looks like we got one of our Frontier Hawks right away. So, the boss will go next. The boss will play out a Stinger, which will hit us for 3, bringing us down to 47. Okay. We'll start off by playing our Frontier Hawk. These stealthy fighters are often the leading edge of an Imperial Armada. So we'll draw and then discard a card. So we will draw another Frontier Hawk, which we're going to keep, so I'll discard a Scout instead. We'll play out another Frontier Hawk, which will let us draw and discard a card. So we will draw another Scout, which can just hit the bin. Then I'll play out my 3 Scouts. 6 combat will bring the boss down to 32. Then 3 trade will get 2 of which 2 will give me the Cargo Craft, and if this is a 1, we'll grab it as well. It's another Cargo Craft, which we may still try to grab next turn. So the 1 trade will float away. See if I can get a base. 2, 3, 4, 5. Get my base into play. Nope, but that's the last card of the deck. Alright, I was about to go to that deck, but the boss actually goes to this deck to play out a Spike Cluster for 2. 2 combat. It's a base strength of 3. The 2 combat hits me down to 45. Unfortunately, this is kind of bad because now the boss will actually get to keep their base in play for an ally ability, which is going to cause us some trouble. 2 combat will hit the boss down to 30. Then 3 trade will grab us another cargo craft. Hopefully this is a 1 cost so I can grab it. Which is another Outland station, which is going to be very useful, but not right now. So that's what that is. And we'll give all of this a quick shuffle. I want to be able to take out that spike cluster if I can. So I'm hoping I can get to some combat here. 3, 4, 5. And a pretty good amount. Let's see what I've got here. Looks like just enough to take it out. But let's see what we've got here. We have a Burrower, which is 5. Oh boy, this is going to be a problem. So 5 combat. Both ally abilities trigger. So when they draw a card, it puts its lowest cost base in the discard pile into play. So it puts another spike cluster out, which is very bad. Then it's going to be hitting us for a lot here. So it's actually hitting us for 3. It's actually hitting us for 11 to bring us down to 34. That's not great. And now we've got 2 spike clusters just like that to worry about. And of course, well, actually, I take that back. I was a bit alarmed, but I think we can blast them both. So we've got 1 trade, which I've got to decide if I want to use that or let it go to waste. We'll find out here in a minute. Okay, so discarding a card gives me another 3 combat, is it? Yes. Alright, so I do need the combat for that desperately, so I'm at 2. Actually, I'm 1 short. So I will take out one of the spike clusters, but the other 2 can only be aimed at the boss to bring it down to 28. And then I've actually got 3 trade. I'll take the 3 authority to bring me up to 37, because I know I'm getting hit again next turn. So 3 trade will get me another outpost, or another Outland station, and then replacing it will be a farm ship. 3 trade, draw, then discard a card. It costs 4 to acquire. And we'll move all of that to the discard pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're going to start getting some firepower online, which is not a moment too soon, that's for sure. But the boss is next playing a Crusher. This is going to be an owie. So 6 trade. It doesn't need cannons or missiles to wreak destruction. So it's going to be hitting us for 3, 9. So 4 of which takes out the Outland station, and then it hits us with the other 5 to bring us down to 32. So that's gone. We need the spike cluster taken out yesterday. So the Frontier Hawk will come out first for our next turn, which will let us draw, then discard a card. We will draw another Scout, which can get binned. Then we'll play out the Cargo Craft, which will turn the ally ability on. So we have now 7. We have 7 combat and 5 trade. 4 of the combat will go at the spike cluster, and we can aim the other 4 at the boss's face to bring it down to 24. And then with 5 trade to play with, I think I'll grab the Long Hauler for 4. If this is a 1, I'll grab it as well. It's another Long Hauler. So the 1 floats away. Draw back up. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll shuffle all of this back up. and 5. I could use some of our firepower, but I think we're winning the race right now. And oh yeah, we're going to get some firepower going here. So the boss's next turn, it's going to be another nesting ground. So it gains 2 combat, hits us with that, bringing us down to 30. Fortunately, it's a non-outpost strength of 5. The ally ability is a lot more alarming, though. I want to try to take that out quickly here, which I should be able to do in theory. But let's see what we've got in the hand waiting for it. So we'll start off with a Frontier Hawk to draw and discard a card. So we will draw a Cargo Craft, which is going nowhere. I will discard a Scout to that. Then we've got 2 Scouts, which will go to grabbing an Explorer. Actually, I take that back. We're going to have more trade than that, because we've got 2 Cargo Crafts as well, which gives me a total of 6 trade. Opponent is the Automa would discard 2 cards, except instead we get 3 combat out of that. So that means we're going to be doing some serious damage this turn. So discarding a card gives us another 3 combat per, so we have a total of 3, 6, 9, and 8 is 17. 5 of which will go at taking out the nesting ground, and 12 will cut the boss's remaining health in half, bringing it down to 12. Then 6 trade, I think we'll grab a long hauler, and then we'll replace that with a repair mech for 4. We have another one of those out. Then the other 2 will just grab an explorer. Okay, so looks like we've managed to settle things down again. Hopefully, as long as the boss doesn't do too much crazy, we can probably win this in a couple of turns. This is going to be somewhat slow going, I think, but I think we'll get there in the end. So, next up for the boss, a Pulverizer. Scrap a card in the trade row and gain combat equal to its trade value. So it's going to be scrapping, what does it scrap? The highest cost card? Oh, it scraps the most expensive card. Yes, okay. So it will scrap the Federation battleship and hit us for 7 combat. Or hit us for 7, ultimately. So replacing the Federation battleship is a Plasma Bot for 2 trade. 3 combat, you may scrap a card in your hand. Ally ability to scrap 2 more. So the boss hits us for 7, bringing us down to 23. Now the boss only has 4 cards left in its deck, but I think it's going to be dead before then. So I will play out 2 Outland Stations. I've got a Viper, which will hit the boss down to 11. And I've got 2 trade for sure, up to 4 depending on what I want to do with these 2. Up to 4 trade depending on what I want to do with these 2 Outland Stations. Let's see, looking here, I think I'm actually going to take the 6 Authority. I'd rather play it a little bit safer here, so I'll go up to 29, and then buy an Explorer for 2. Then we'll draw back up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it looks like we've mostly got trade and firepower coming. So the boss's next card is a Blob Alpha, which would cost 6, gives them 10 combat, which is enough to wipe out both of my Outland Stations and to hit me for 2. So I'm down to 27. Yowza, that was a turn. All right, so we'll start off with a Frontier Hawk. 3 combat, draw, then discard a card. So we will draw a Scout, which I think will hit the bin. And then we've got 1 combat, which will bring the... Actually, we've got 4 total, which will bring the boss down to 7. And then we've got a total of 5 trade to play with, which I'll grab the farm ship for 4. And if this is a 1 cost, I'll grab it as well. It's a defense system for 4. Machine Cult base. Gives you 2 combat when it's out in play. Ally ability with Machine Cult is another 2 combat, outpost strength of 5, so the 1's going to float away. And we'll shuffle all of this back up. Hopefully if we can get... I'd like to be able to get the 7 combat while we basically have things under control. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't want to get surprised by like a particularly dangerous outpost or something like that, but we're not going to get anywhere here. So next up for the boss, we have a swarm cluster. Yikes. Outposts or non-outpost strength of 8, so we can't ignore it. 5 combat, ally ability of 3, double ally ability for another 3, so we're getting hit for 5. The thing about that is if we get the attack strength to defeat that, we might as well just defeat the boss at that point. Because that's honestly our better play at this point. So, unfortunately we're not doing much on the attack front this turn. So, we've got an outland station, then we've got a bunch of trades. So we've got 5, potentially 6 if I want to use the outland station for that, but I think I'd rather take the authority, especially with a big attack coming next turn. I'll leave that in play to take an attack for us. I was thinking about scrapping it for an extra card, but like I said, I think leaving it in play to take a blow for us is going to be a much better idea. Let's see, 5 trade, I'll grab the defense system for 4, and then replacing it will be a builder bot for 1, which I'll grab as well. So we're out after this, but we'll find a light cruiser for 3. It's a Star Empire ship. 4 combat, target opponent discards cards, which is otherwise known as 3 combat in this case. Ally ability for 2, double ally, draw a card. So we'll move that over to the discard pile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully we've got enough combat here to take it out. This is bad. Well, maybe not. We might have to get a little bit crazy with this. So we've got a guaranteed 5 plus, geez, another 4. So it's got an ally ability, which will put another... Oh, yikes. This is really bad. Okay, so the ally ability is trigger. So it's already got 12 combat, and it's going to draw a card to put another base into play, which will be a... Where is it? Spike cluster. Yikes. This may have just completely gone haywire on us. But let's see. Alright, so double ally abilities are all active, which means that 3 is active. It's putting another spike cluster into play. Yuck! Because that's the cheapest base it's got. Yikes. Oh boy. Okay, so let's total up all this combat. So we've got 11, 15, 18, 21. Yikes! So 4 takes out the outland station, and then it hits us for the other 17, which brings us down to 8. And this is it. This is going to be the last turn. Yowza. So, here's what we need to do. Well, we've got all kinds of trade here. So, we've got 1 combat with the Viper. We're going to go ahead and play out the Outland Station and the Long Hauler to give me another 5. The Outland Hauler is giving me another 5 trade for sure. This is really bad. And then I've got 3 more trade here. So I've got a total of 5, 6, 7, 8 trade. Yikes. Well, I think my only chance here, I can decide what to do with that later. So I'm going to use 2 trade from the Scout, or from the Explorer, to buy the Plasma Bot. I'm trying to get a base that can hopefully give me enough combat, because I've got 3 trade. I need to get to a base with at least 4, so that I can scrap both the Long Hauler to put it on top, and then the Outland Station to draw it. So let's see what we've got here. That's another Plasma Bot. That's unfortunate, but let's see. I'll go ahead and buy it, and I'll still have 4 to play with. So here we find a destroyer bot. Oh, this is bad. Well, let's scrap the out... Oh, yikes. I don't think we're winning the game anyway, so let's go ahead and scrap the Outland. Actually, let's take the trade from it, and then we'll scrap it to draw a card. This needs to be at least 4 combat. So we draw Frontier Hawk, which is actually not that helpful right now, because we're going to end up... Ultimately, we're going to end up 1 combat short. Because we'll draw, then discard a card, so we'll draw... Actually, I could have done this in a different order, couldn't I have? Let's... Alright, so we bought the... Okay, let me think about this. So we bought the Plasma Bot for 2. Okay, let me think about this for a minute. So I had... So if I bought... So I bought the Plasma Bots for 4... and I had the Outland Station in play at the start of the turn, so I can pretend the Scout... I can pretend I didn't play the Scout yet. I'm going to back this up a little bit, but this is my only chance. So at the start of the turn, we had the Outland Station in play. Long Hauler came in, played us up to 6. I bought the 2 Plasma Bots for 2, or for 4. Then I scrapped the Outland Station to draw a card. So that's what this is, right? The draw was the Frontier Hawk, so we're pretending I haven't played the Scout yet. So our draw here is a Viper, which I think is the combat we need, but I will take a small break while I tabulate this up. Okay, so I was tallying it up, and it turns out that is the 1 combat I needed. So I'll discard the aforementioned Scout, then I'll scrap the Explorer to get the last 2 combat I need, which is Exactsies to defeat the boss, because none of these bases are outpost bases, which is very fortunate for us in the grand scheme of things. So, boss is defeated barely. But that will do it for this playthrough of Star Realms. I think 2 plays is plenty for this one. So as a small reminder, we're about halfway through the month, so if you have an Ask Me Anything question you want me to answer during my end of July recap, make sure to get it in one of the videos for the month. Sunday we're playing Xayah Legends of a Drift System, and next week we're going to try our hand at Terraforming Mars as we play Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. No expansion, as I haven't had time to get it out with an expansion yet. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care everyone.